I'm really struggling to succinctly summarize Soul Coughing's sound. They're a band that truly exemplified the richness that was the alternative scene in the 90s. Maybe you could call them experimental jazz rock with some hip-hop influence there, but that doesn't seem quite right. They're determined to be different, strange even, and as chaotic as that may seem, this dysfunctional quartet has managed to create some of the most interesting grooves and catchiest nonsense that I've ever discovered. The band was formed by Mike Doughty while he was working as a doorman at the knitting factory in New York. When he finally got some stage time, he used his position to convince some local artists to perform with him, and they quickly caught the attention of record companies. Those artists were bassist Sebastian Steinberg, drummer Yuval Gabe, and keyboardist Mark Digliantoni, and they were Soul Coughing from 1992 until around 1999. They signed with Slash Records, and with help from producer Chad Blake in 1994, they came out with their debut album, Ruby Vroom. It would set the tone and the stage for their weird poetic twist, featuring a wide array of musical stylings spattered with all sorts of sampled oddities. Their 1996 follow-up, Irresistible Bliss, saw them continue on their experimental and unpredictable ways while simultaneously finding some radio play with the infectious, aggressive opening track Super Bon Bon and the sweet, sublime Soft Serve. Both of those albums have aged quite well, but today I'm here to talk about my favorite in the Soul Coughing trilogy, this. Their third and final album, through Slash Records and produced by Chad Blake as well. This is their 1998 release, Soul Coughing's El Oso, the Bear. Arr. This is a post-rock masterpiece that I cannot believe wasn't more popular. The sheer number of vocal hooks and groovy melodies is astounding. Not only will they have you dancing and singing along while it's playing, but for weeks and weeks after as well. Mike Doughty's voice has this unique timbre to it, a sort of cerebral slacker quality that I really identify with. It sits somewhere in between like an Aesop Rock and the Jamie Laurie of the Flowbots, and a delivery that's reminiscent of maybe Tom Waits doing slam poetry. Everything about this band is a little bit different or off of the norm, from the drumming and the sampling to the disjointed grooves and melodies. They just make weird work, and I totally love it. There's quite a few fun tracks that I want to dive into today, so let's just get started where El Oso starts. And that's the atmospheric, dance floor filling, alt-rock mash rolling. It's a foot tap and head bop and opener, and some of the delivery on the verses here, maybe it's just that cerebral slacker quality I was picking up before, but it reminds me of modern YouTube musicians like Bo Burnham or Mark Rebillet. It might just be the cadence or the attitude, but it's just got some similar vibes going on, and I enjoy those as well, so that's just another aspect that brings me back to this project. This opening track and the following, Misinformed, are both built off these fantastic drum and bass lines, and they're brought together phenomenally by their melodic, repetitive hooks and choruses that just tie the whole thing right up nicely, get you started on such a high note. That busier, futuristic beach rock from Misinformed shifts into the band's biggest hit, and it's a song that's still barely cracked the Billboard Top 40. Circles is definitely still a jam though, a simple, liberating Cali rock song delivered with Doughty's laid-back signature style, and all brought together again with that irresistible chorus. I don't need to walk around in circles, walk around in circles, walk around in circles, walk around in. Blame speeds things up with a fast, funky bass line and a jungle drum beat. It's super fun, but it is one of those cases where there's not quite as much variety as I've gotten used to, I guess, after listening to so much Soul Coughing. As much as I enjoy throw the rudder down, it just kind of sits in that same spot and you're ready for it to be over by the time it's over. That said, when they do take a uncommonly grounded and straightforward approach on the next song, St. Louise. It comes across quite well as a groovy narrative rocker, and it shows just how formidable of artists these guys are and how great they could have been if they ever actually got along. Maybe I'll come down as an even better example, in my opinion, with its themes of working out of stagnation, its emotional building verses, and its fantastic uplifting chorus. It should have been all over alternative radio stations. Appropriately following a track about coming down, we go to Houston, which is a sketchier experimental funk rock song that is this wonky Gorillaz quality about it, sort of a sitting on the edge of a precarious situation but attacking it with such confidence that you're convinced that they'll probably make it through alright, right? We then get yet another interesting batch of samples on the track $300. It's a really moving and full song that's about addiction. The title of which it comes from the Chris Rock sample they use and distort in a way that you can't even understand that it's Chris Rock saying it anymore. But the joke goes, prostitute offers them anything they want for $300, and he says, paint my house. Don't criticize my delivery, I'm no comic here, you fuckers. The catchy, repetitive, melodic hooks and one-liners hit, and they don't stop throughout this whole project. I find a lot of these songs have this ability to lull me into a groovy, hypnotic, trance-like state where you kind of sink below the lyrics and just absorb the sound as a whole and kind of vibe along with that. I found that $300 does quite a good job at that. You get Pensacola with its waves in which you drown me shouting, waves in which you drown me shouting, waves. And then also on possibly what might be my favorite soul coughing song, Fully Retractable. It's a kickback jam with an exceptional groove and with the lyrics that kind of craft the melody as it goes. I've read that Mike considers this one lyrically unfinished, as at the time he would just kind of get high and fudge some of the words, plan on changing them later, but then never get around to it, and then they would end up on the record. But there is something delightfully whimsical about the nonsense in some of the lyrics here, and there are still some really great lines in it. The chorus, though, it gets me every time. Half-masted bass boosted sling back, fully retractable. Half-masted bass boosted sling back, fully retractable. I am not entirely sure what it means, but I love singing along and I love listening to it. I know it may not look like I got the memo, but I know Halloween just passed. Monster Man, though, a track you should probably add to next year's playlist. It's playful urgency that this multi-phased, fast-paced alt-rocker has that keeps this thing moving, but then you get a sort of grungier, emotional epic. It's the aforementioned Pensacola, those waves in which you drown me come in and bury that Halloween song right in the mud. I think they made a slight misstep in the track list here, putting I Miss the Girl after Pensacola instead of after Monster Man. Maybe it's because the beats are too similar, but I think the darkness that this track conveys would flow really nicely into the crashing waves on Pensacola. I've tried it out, I think it sounds alright, but I'm certainly no expert. We're nearly done now with So Far I Have Not Found the Science, which lightened things up with a sort of laissez-faire, almost aloof attitude. I think it would have been a lovely closing sentiment, but my least favorite song on the LP is the one that closes it off instead. The Incumbent isn't a terrible track, but I just feel like the stuttering samples all pile on and just sort of repeat until it gets a little bit stale. And I understand it's sort of a reflection of Dowdy's experience of living the monotony of the Big Apple, but ultimately this track just kind of serves as a little bit of a longer time period for me to start seeking out another album to put on after it. Besides that bit of an anticlimactic closing track, I don't have a whole lot of negative things to say about really Soul Coughing's entire catalog. Their music is a ton of fun. It's incredibly re-listenable, full of all sorts of refreshing musical fusions and deep burrowing earworms. A vibe all its own. I certainly recommend you add Soul Coughing to the list of bands to search for while digging through the stacks at your local thrift shop. Since their breakup, Yuval and Sebastian have formed a group called UV Rays and have also worked alongside a number of prominent musicians over the past couple decades. Sebastian even appeared on Fiona Apple's latest masterpiece, Fetch the Bolt Cutters. Mark shifted his focus towards scoring films, but has also toured alongside the likes of David Byrne and others. Mike Doughty has released a large number of solo albums since the breakup, as well as a couple of books, even one talking about his time with Soul Coughing. Most recently, he's formed a group called Ghost of Vroom, which originally was the title intended to be a dubbed version of their debut Ruby Vroom, but it was never written, and so he has written this sort of new Soul Coughing material, reached out to the old band, but they refused to make it with him, and so he's teamed up with Andrew Scrap Livingston, the bassist, and has come out with a project that sounds pretty similar to what you got from Soul Coughing, and is probably the closest thing you're gonna get. It's entitled Ghost of Vroom 1, and he's also released a sort of COVID-themed EP titled Ghost of Vroom 2, if you want to check those out. I've linked them down in the description. So if you're interested in that new stuff, this old stuff, or any of the stuff I talked about today, it's always linked down in the description below. Make sure you leave me a comment letting me know your favorite Soul Coughing song or album, and maybe consider check out this other yellow album I reviewed here, or this one that YouTube thinks you'll like. Subscribe for more throwback album retrospectives, more secondhand music madness. Like the video, do all that fun stuff. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time, guys.